here we are for Montressor Talks. I'm your host, Jesse. Today I have Seth.
Hello, I'm here.
And Hope.
Give me my title, damn it.
You're the horror.
Yay, thank you.
And today we have a very special guest. I've been trying to organize an interview with this man for a while now. Mr. Macon Blair. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for being patient with me.
We had some technical issues.
We'll be patient with you all day, any day, sir.
Yeah. We had some technical issues getting this started, but we finally figured it out. So I have been a fan of Macon's since I saw Blue Ruin, which was the first thing I saw you in. And I also know people that worked on that. I actually even saw the pulse sheet for the equipment at the Washington Source back when you guys were shooting it in the Maryland, Virginia area.
Yeah.
I just rewatched that last night. You guys really love making use of that 6-foot slider. I noticed that.
That was, that was the main piece of equipment. It was a Mighty Works 6-foot slider that we just used over and over and over again. Jeremy had gotten used to that, shooting little, like basically commercials that he was just sort of getting a lot of production value out of really cheap. And so he just scooted that over when we were making that one, and we couldn't afford lots of big dolly rentals, so we did it all with that one for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did you actually get into acting? Because you and Jeremy Saulnier had been childhood friends.
Yeah.
And you basically were making films together for a long time before you even started making your first movie, which is Murder Party, which is one of Hope's favorites. I love it too.
Yes. I'm wearing my horror hoodie right now. I'm like, Murder Party is my thing. I love it.
A deep cut. Yeah. No, it was just Jeremy and I grew up in the same neighborhood in Virginia, and a bunch of other folks too. And that's kind of just what we did for fun after school, was make movies on VHS and occasionally Super 8. And, that was kind of our thing for weekends and after school activities. And I guess that's just how we got into it. And then it was just about trying to figure out how to turn that into some kind of a job. So we all moved to New York and tried to do that.
That's wild. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was just Murder Party was the first feature that we did, and that was largely self-funded. It was, I think they shot it for like $200,000, something like that. That was a lot of Jeremy and the producer Chris, and then just friends and family kind of chipping in money. And then it took quite a while after that to get into Blue Ruin. Everybody kind of went back to our day jobs for a while in between the first and second one. So it wasn't like anything kind of took off immediately. There was a lot of resets and false starts and that kind of thing.
That makes me specifically feel very hopeful, just hearing that is just kind of the process like that. It sounds like you're making that out to be kind of normal for when you're just getting your roots kind of laid in the industry. It takes a little bit of it's going to take some time to grow this for a second.
Yeah. I think maybe because it's to a certain extent, because Blue Ruin had a good, festival run, and that's sort of what got Jeremy's foot in the door, and then I kind of slipped in behind his foot, and so that's sort of, it seems like the first thing, but there was a good 15 or 20 years of fucking around before that, trying to get stuff made and not being able to, and kind of almost getting stuff going and then having it fall apart. So,
wow.
It was definitely more of a slow, steady incline as opposed to an all at once type thing.
And that really builds, because as we look at some of the projects you've been involved in over the last couple of years, you're very close to being in that name drop territory, my guy. Like, you are working with some of the people that, I think working with people like Peter Dinklage, working with, or even Soderbergh, or even making your own films. I actually found you through I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. Like,
I love that.
It felt like
so good.
It felt like a love letter directly to me. I was like, I love this movie. And then as I investigated some of the other films and got into some of Jeremy's films, like it feels like a snowball. It feels like I'm watching a snowball. What does that feel like to you?
That's a good way to say it. A snowball, yeah, and just it I don't know. It will never not feel very surreal to get to work with or work alongside with these people that you know, as recently as 5 or 10 years ago, I was just watching from afar and being kind of mystified by, but you know, it's very surreal and strange, and I always have to kind of like look around and feel like, is this some sort of elaborate prank that's being pulled or something? Like I try very hard to not, you know, geek out in those situations. If you find yourself on set with somebody like Steven Soderbergh, and it's very difficult to not just kind of
vibrate. Yeah.
I was just about to use that word. I hope nobody can notice that I'm fucking nervous and mind blown and all these other things. But yeah, it's very it's very startling, and I just feel very grateful a lot of the time, and kind of like, you know, I kind of just give myself permission to be like, it's okay to be to have your mind blown by this. I would never want to be in the situation where it's just kind of like, yeah, Peter Dinklage, whatever. Like it's fucking, it's the dude. Or
right.
I've been very, very lucky to get to work with folks like that who I've admired for a long time. In some cases, you know, I mean, my God, I was obsessed with Soderbergh. I've been following since his like first movie. This is just like, it's a very surreal thing to kind of find yourself in a situation getting to work with folks like that. So,
well, just it goes to show like what dedication and passion can do. Like, you've been so dedicated to all this, you know, and it's like you like put it into existence, you know.
Well, I hope so. I also think I got very lucky. I just kind of like it. I could have just as easily, you know, not met Jeremy growing up, and things could have diverged in a different way. But I've been very lucky with the people who I've crossed paths with, and then just sort of been able to maintain relationships with them and continue to build things and work together. It's if it were to all, you know, stop tomorrow, it would be a bummer, but I would still be incredibly grateful for what I've gotten so far. It's really mind blowing.
I feel like you're setting yourself up for like a Truman Show moment where it's just all revealed. Like, yeah, sorry, dude. It was all set up. Yeah, you're part of a show. It was centered around Macon. Yeah, that's this is the reveal. Actually, this podcast is the reveal for your Truman Show life. Sucks. I'm sorry that it ends today,
but it would have been a great show. No,
you know?
That's one of the when the Truman Show came out, that was one of those things where I had always kind of, I can't be the only one where you kind of wonder if you're on camera all the time. And then the Truman Show came out, and I was like, oh shit, they made a movie about exactly what I'm thinking about. So this is like an elaborate double layer of they've read my mind, but made a movie about it. But
well, it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon, because you have, is it 4 things that are still on the way? You have, what is it, Brothers, Toxic Avenger, which we'll get to, Rebel Ridge with Jeremy, and 57 Seconds. Let's talk about Toxic Avenger a little bit, because you wrote and directed this remake, and this will probably end up on our other show, Split the Difference, one day, where we take originals and remakes and compare them.
So yeah.
Now I've heard it said that this is not a remake, though. Like, are we dedicated to that title?
How much are you allowed to say is the question?
Oh, well, I mean, as far as that goes, I think I'm not supposed to talk about plot stuff, but I mean, remake, reboot, I mean, it's kind of like, it's a guy. He encounters some toxic waste. He turns into a mutant. He fucks up bad guys with a mop. I mean, I don't know. It's
It's
not.
a tale as old as time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, I guess.
It's just
I
another
don't know how
Tuesday.
to.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just another Tuesday, whatever.
Yeah. It's this story as old as time. I don't know. Uh, is that a remake or a reboot? I don't know. It's not like the exact same character names or the exact
Yeah.
situation. It's kind of taking the basic idea and and sort of just doing a new version of it. So
Yeah.
I kind of think of it as a remake or a reboot or something. I'm not really sure what the distinction is, but I think the main thing is that like knowing that the fan base for Troma and Toxie is so passionate and dedicated.
Oh yeah.
I thought it would be just like a non-starter to try and go in the opposite direction of what they would want in a remake. It's like you kind of have to serve that group first. I felt like.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, like that was my introduction to Lloyd, honestly, was Toxie. Like that's how I got into the Tromaverse and everything. I was obsessed with Toxie. So like when I heard about this, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I get more Toxie.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what you hope for. It's kind of like I would want to have all those folks like yourself feel like they got something that sort of checks those same boxes as the original, and not feel like we're going to do something and just keep the name and go in a totally different direction. It's kind of you want to serve that audience, and at the same time have it serve the more mainstream audience that doesn't know anything about Troma, that doesn't know about Toxic. And it's never going to work entirely in both directions, but that was the goal, was to kind of try to satisfy both of those groups. And so it's the same sort of spirit and the same sort of vibe as the original, or at least that's the intention. And then just giving it a new story, kind of like a new spin on it. So I don't know if you would, strictly speaking, call that a remake or a reboot or what,
It's a new chapter.
Yeah.
A new chapter, sure, yeah.
It sounds a bit like the new Hellraiser, how it's not really a reboot or a remake, it's another one, but it's in the spirit of the original.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, you can kind of think of it as like, James Bond or Batman or something. It's kind of like you start it and it's like it'll be its own thing with its own tone, but that it'll have the pointy ears and there'll be a Batmobile and there'll be a Commissioner Gordon. There's certain sort of ingredients that are going to be there, and for us it's like, well, he's got to have the mop.
Right, obviously.
Yeah, but it's sort of like it could have its own ingredients at the same time. So
Totally.
So it's a bit of a tricky balance to try and hit all of those boxes at the same time, but that's what we were trying to do.
Yeah. Will it be a hard R rating?
But that was one of the things, like right at the beginning, Legendary had gotten the rights to it, and they were working with Troma on it, and they kind of asked me what the approach would be, and that was one of the first things, was like, I don't know what y'all are thinking, but it really can't be a PG-13 sort of 4-quadrant movie. It's sort of, the hardcore fans aren't going to want that, and then the new customers who don't know anything about it are also not going to want that. It's like you kind of have to commit to a certain version, and I kind of felt like it had to be kind of gnarly like that. At the same time, it also needs to be silly and funny. I mean, like the blueprint for it was things like Airplane and Naked Gun as much as any horror movies. I mean, it's wanting it to be kind of absurd and over the top was part of the wish list.
Do you feel like you added your your touch of spice to this incarnation of Toxie and this story? Like do you feel like you have like your fin sail up on top of it, the thing that we can identify as you within it?
I hope so. I mean, I certainly tried to. I felt like that would be the way to make it work, would be to personalize it and have it be something that's not just feeling like we're mechanically going through the motions. So again, it was kind of trying to make it feel like a bit of a personal story, but at the same time keep it within the trauma boundaries.
Totally.
And when I say that, I mean not so much the story boundaries, but like tone and sensibility and like the way you approach an audience and how you want to entertain them. And you know, I just, that was another thing, was like doing the super grimy, gritty, serious version of it was also something I didn't think folks were going to be interested in. So sort of keeping it.
I'm imagining Toxic Avenger directed by Chris Nolan. How awful would that be?
I mean, that's just not what people would.
No, I'm
like.
cringing at the thought.
Well, and it just it's something I've observed within the fandom as the speculation engine starts up around what the movie is going to be. I've noticed a lot of people reiterating the sentiment of they don't want it to feel corporatized. That's the real big, like, hey, like the original Toxie was all about shitting on this, so like don't put that sheen on it. Can you speak to, like, do you feel like this is a corporate version, or do you really? I'm imagining that the reason to bring you in is you love this shit, right? And so you're almost trying to trot the line of like a cover band. You know, you're doing a cover of an original song, and you're also trying to make it your own. Is there a framework that you're grabbing in there that? I guess that's what I'm kind of going for. What are you most excited for people to see in this version? What's like the standout that you're gunning for?
I want people to come away from it feeling like they got a good, entertaining comedy. I mean, like that's sort of what it boils down to. It's kind of like it's gross, and it's got the monsters, and it's got, you know, a kind of a superhero, you know, underdog hero fighting against the system. It's got all the things that the first movie did, but we weren't trying to have it be like a John Wick action movie where everyone's like, holy shit, that was we weren't trying to make it like a horror movie that's legit scary and terrifying. I mean, to me, nobody talks about the original Toxic Avenger like, oh shit, that was a scary movie. Like, no. And nobody's talking about it like, wow, that was, you know, amazing fight scenes. No, they're talking about how berserk and over the top and enjoyable and just kind of lovingly absurd it is, at least to me.
Yeah. No, of course.
And so that's the sort of vibe that we wanted to go for. And so, you know, there's fights and there's gore and there's splatter and stuff like that, but the intention is that people are kind of like, you know, to one degree or another, smiling throughout it. That's sort of, I wanted it to be a fun, loose kind of rock and roll type of movie. So as far as it being corporate or not, I mean, it's made by a giant studio. There's definitely going to be aspects of it that people will say like, it's,
well, that's the goal at the end of the day, you know, to be recognized by a big company so you can get that money to make it how you want, you know, like.
Right.
Well, that's the thing, is that you know, they were Legendary and Lloyd and Troma were involved in this too, but I kept expecting for a lot more of kind of like, well, you know, we need to do this or we need to do that, and their input was very much editorial and tonal, but there was never anything like, well, I don't know, like this joke seems a little too weird for the mainstream. They kind of encouraged it to be in a weird way, like they were never trying to shoehorn it into a particular, like, oh, this needs to appeal to the Dune audience or even the Godzilla audience. Like they were very energized and comfortable with it, like no, it should be its own thing. And then within that, they definitely had input as far as how to make the best version of itself, but they were very encouraging with it being kind of weird and a little not corporate. So
So they
really
actually did their real job then, and not just.
Oh,
No.
well, I mean, the producer Alex that was on this, like this, he hunted the rights down. He
Wow. Okay,
he's
so
the original super fan. He was talking with Lloyd. This was not like we ended up with an IP on our desk. What can we do with this? It was a guy who was very directed, like, let's make a Toxie movie. So it was
a man on a mission.
It came from a standpoint of a super fan, as opposed to just like, how do we reboot this? And like, it's we'll see how that lands with people. But the intention on their side and the intention on my side was definitely to serve the fans.
Yeah, as a
awesome.
fan, that's really encouraging for me to hear. I love hearing directors and producers talking about, like, no, my hands weren't tied. I don't know why I believe that. Like, I feel like you would say, no, there were some things, like there would, if there were issues, I feel like they would be brought up. But anytime I heard James Gunn, actually I saw James Gunn tweeting about his process with Marvel and how he was not hands tied. And I was like, that's really interesting to hear that move is kind of starting to happen almost at the quote, air quotes, corporate level. So I'm encouraged to hear it for sure.
Maybe everyone just needs to be associated with trauma and have that, like, don't give a shitness, and maybe that's what it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that, like, I was allowed to just, like, go nuts. I mean, there's budgetary constraints, and there's all sorts of conversations to be had, and it's collaborative. But, like, I was very not surprised, but just kind of like, it felt good that everybody was trying to make the same movie. It was never like,
that's
guys,
awesome.
it should be silly and ridiculous, and they're trying to say, like, no, it should be like dark and gritty. Everybody was sort of aligned with, like, the type of movie that we were trying to make and the way in which we were going to try and have the fans, and then the new not non-fans, but the old fans, and then the new folks,
the new gen, yeah.
The new gen be pleased in the same way. And so, even if people don't know anything about the original at all, they could come to it and be like, oh, that was a weird, fun movie. And then the folks that do know the original could feel like, they got something that was new enough without being like, oh, you've taken something that was precious to me and inverted it,
Yeah. Quick question. I heard recently that Legendary cut ties with Warner Brothers. Did that have any effect on the production at all, or was that just an aside? You wasn't involved with that at all?
Yeah, I didn't have anything to do with that, and I believe all of that even happened after we were wrapped. I mean, the movie's actually been done for a while. It's just sort of a scheduling thing. So
trying to find the right time to release it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, like by the time the movie was like, we finished post-production, like late spring of 22, and so by that time it was kind of like, it didn't really feel like, well, it was too early for it to be a summertime movie. It also didn't feel like it fit in with the fall, which was already very crowded and kind of prestige-y. And this is definitely like a different animal than that. So I think they were just like, let's just cool it for a minute and then look at 2023 as far as scheduling goes.
I would have absolutely released that in the Oscar season, just to be like, hey, take a look at what we got.
Counter programming. Yeah.
That'd be funny.
That would have been cool. But yeah, no, I don't. It definitely didn't have any effect as far as anything that I was aware of. I think that was all on like a different level than what I'm involved in.
Yeah, we discussed a little bit of the Warner Brothers fire sale that's has been happening recently. It's a mess. It's a mess. But quick little thing I noticed. I recently rewatched Blue Ruin. There's a credit in the end in special thanks. It says Francesco Francavilla, the comic book artist. Why is
Yeah.
he credited there? I'm just curious.
He did some he did some concept art for he did like a mock-up poster at one point when we were, I think that was part of our Kickstarter packages. Like you could get a Francesco poster.
That's cool.
I think he did like limited edition poster for it. And helped us out with some concept art too. I did a comic book story with him. Oh shit! It was so long ago. It was like 15 or 20 years ago. But we just sort of stayed in touch, and every now and again he'll do some concept art for something or other, or like a little fake poster, that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Seth, I know you really want to discuss I Don't Feel at Home in This World. And Hope, you really want to discuss Murder Party.
Well, I actually do have a question. It's a very out there question about I Don't Feel at Home in This World anymore.
Yeah.
So, so your two main characters, Melanie Linsky and Elijah Wood, both of them are actually on one of my favorite miniseries, Over the Garden Wall.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that at all, or like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I was gonna say, like, as soon as like when I saw those credits, I was like, wait, Over the Garden Wall? What crossover is this? This is a crossover episode. Oh my gosh! Like, so.
It was coincidental. Like I'm a big fan of that as well, but it was not like it was not deliberately trying to recreate that casting. It was just independently. I had kind of written those parts with thinking about them both, and wasn't really sure if we were going to be able to get them in the movie, and alarmingly we were. It was one of those things of kind of like, oh, it would be cool, and they were sort of the ideas that I had in mind for those characters, but didn't really think that at that point that the movie would even get made. And if it did, like, well, probably we'll have to be, flexible with the casting, and it definitely took like a year to get that movie going, and part of that was a lot of convoluted casting conversations. But again, that's one of those like, holy shit, I can't believe that at the end of that process, I got to end up with the two folks that I had very specifically created.
Awesome.
Yeah,
like I know like Elijah Wood is a huge advocate for like the weird and everything. Like he produced the Greasy Strangler, so I mean he's always down for like the smaller projects, the more weird projects. So like when I saw that, I knew he would totally be down for whatever you got cooked in your brain.
Yeah, and he's anyways, I think you'll be very excited with him in the Toxic Avenger. His character is is a lot of fun.
Oh, I
Awesome.
cannot wait! I cannot wait.
I've repeatedly tried to message him on Twitter and be like, hey, are you available for an interview? And he never gets back to me. I'm guessing he doesn't check his messages.
I don't think so. And he's got.
I know he's a private person,
stuff like that. So I don't know, but yeah, he's hilarious in this one, and that was my mind was completely blown when we got to close the casting deals for those two on that movie. It was just kind of like I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but it was a really special thing for me.
Well, yeah, like I said, you put it out there, you envisioned it, you got what you like you have this special power apparently to just like make what you want.
Well, we're talking about the time when it worked. Now, there's all the other times when I've envisioned things and put them out there, and
semantics.
But I take your point, and yeah, if only one of those envisionings or putting it out there situations works out, then that's great for me.
was about to say that's a lot more than most people, so I am jealous of you already.
We've repeatedly said that it's a miracle that any movie gets made these days.
Yeah.
It's true. It's like everything's sort of a slog, but in retrospect, it all feels you forget the hard parts and you forget the disappointments, and it's just when it works, you can look back on that fondly. But getting there is it can be rough for sure.
It's like childbirth, like you once the baby is there and born, you forget that you were in pain for so many hours and wanted to die yourself, but you're just like, oh, my baby.
That's what I've been told childbirth is like, so
I wouldn't know myself. I'm just thinking of like how my mother would say you were a pain in the ass to push out of me, and I'm like, okay. So,
exactly. Yeah.
apparently I had a fat head, so
Oh, I was a forceps baby myself, man.
Yeah. Oh, they had to vacuum my ass out,
All
Oh, that's funny.
So
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I want to talk Rebel Ridge for a second. I'm
Yes.
a big fan of Jeremy's, as yours as well. Like I don't want any undue credit here, but as a fan of Jeremy, I'm a Maryland guy. I grew up in kind of the same area. The Norva,
we're all Maryland people.
Norva area. So there's community pride in rooting for you guys. You know what I mean?
Sure.
In the NBA.
There's a little bit of a team spirit there. I'm stoked for Rebel Ridge. I really loved Hold the Dark. That was like one of the first Netflix movies that I waited for it to drop on Netflix the minute it was there and hit play. Like I was stoked for it. So can you tell us anything about Rebel Ridge? And if you can, what are you really excited for? Did you just produce what? I know you may be also in it. What was your involvement?
I'm not in it. I was. I wouldn't say it's not fair to say I produced it. I was not there on set. I'm involved with Jeremy's work, and we talk all the time. But I was sort of hip deep in Toxie when that one was going, so I wasn't there, and I'm not in it. I'm as excited as probably you are, because I've just seen little snippets of footage and stuff, but I'm still waiting to see a cut of it. So I'm kind of like on the other side of things now, kind of as a fan waiting to see it myself. It's I think it's much more of a straight ahead action movie. It's I think if Hold the Dark was more atmospheric and meditative, or however you want to think about it, I think this one's a little bit more of a two-fisted bruiser, which is fun. I think Jeremy's gonna have a fun, character-driven action thriller in this one.
Do you feel like you were the template for this in the films that you guys were making back in the early days of your career? Like I'm seeing some Blue Ruin feelings here. Do you feel like, maybe here's a better question, as an artist or as a writer, do you find yourself going back to ideas? Do you like to kind of rebrush up on things you've touched before and try it in a new way, or cannibalize your own work, for a really ugly metaphor?
Am I able to cannibalize my work? Oh, hey, come here.
Sorry, I have to go.
I got you. I gotta get my dog here.
Pets in the studio.
There we go.
Our mascot actually is my dog Kit, so I love when a dog shows up.
Oh yeah, this is Rascal, so he's gonna hang out with me.
Yay, BB!
Hey, bud. So I'm trying to see if I understood that question correctly. Do you mean with regards to Rebel Ridge specifically, or just
just broadly, in your process as a writer?
Yeah, I kind of have the same sorts of. I mean, it honestly, it feels like I kind of am going back through the same sorts of themes and ideas repeatedly, at least for my side. And it's something that like sometimes it's just feels natural, and other times it feels like it's something that I want to kind of like, oh wait, I have to throw that draft out because I was maybe like swimming in waters that I've already swam in, or it felt unoriginal, or like but that's all stuff that sort of occurs to me after the fact. It's not like when I'm actually sitting down working on something, I'm conscious of like, this has to be something new or whatever. So I think there probably is quite a bit of unintentional cannibalism, self-cannibalism that goes on. But I don't really, I guess it doesn't occur to me until much later, after it's too late to do anything about it. And then I'm like, oh shit, I just repeated myself.
Because there are similarities between Blue Ruin and Green Room, which we haven't touched on yet. I want to get to that as well. Room. Oh man, that movie is just sometimes hard to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, sorry, my buddy, he does this thing called reverse sneezing, and he's reverse sneezing right now. So I know that's not good.
Yeah. Is it because of his? Does he have a collapsing trachea?
I don't think he has a collapsing trachea. I think he's got crazy dog allergies. Gotcha. But,
because I know my dogs have that, so I get it.
Oh, the reverse sneeze, yeah. No, with Green Room, that was one that Jeremy actually had the idea for that in his head. It kind of predated Blue Ruin. It was sort of like he had thought about that, and it was something he wanted to do, but it was too expensive. It was too big. And so Blue Ruin was the smaller, more affordable movie that we could do ourselves with a 6-foot slider. And and then after that, when there was an opportunity to do something a little bit bigger, he kind of rewrote the script but brought the idea back. So
nice.
Green Room was kind of the first one, actually.
You can just see the jump in the budget, especially with the casting, like Patrick Stewart, the late Anton Yelchin, may he rest in peace, Imogen Poots, like just like this huge jump just up in size. Also, I want to note that Blue Ruin's not an A24 film, but it feels like one.
Oh yeah,
it really does feel like an A24 film.
Yeah, I mean, I take that as a compliment.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, that Jeremy just has that particular style where he can do this sort of grounded, very suspenseful, sort of character-driven type of storytelling, and I think to me those two work very well together as kind of companion pieces, and Green Room definitely is the more expansive version of kind of what he started with Blue Ruin, for sure. That was
How did you convince Patrick Stewart to do that?
Yeah, no. I mean, like that was the first sort of like, actually no, the first sort of like, wow, there's a like Eve Plum in Blue Ruin, which is like somebody that grew up with the Brady Bunch, was like, wow, this is weird to kind of be on set with somebody you've watched on TV even when she was much younger, and then to go from there and jump into something like Green Room where Patrick Stewart is hanging around on set was it was mind blowing, for sure.
Damn, I bet. Yeah, I can't imagine. We have a lot of writers in our audience, so I like to ask questions, around writing and the process. And you have a lot of writing credits. Like, if you were to claim your one hat title, do you feel like you are the writer as the real creative? Do you feel like you're more in your place directing or producing? Like if you try to pick your hat, what is the most Macon?
God, that's a tough question. They all have, and I'm not trying to dodge it, but
totally.
I think probably the one that's the most natural to me is writing. That's kind of what I spent the most time trying to figure out. but it's kind of like it can. It's you're isolated in this little space, and you put everything you can into this script, and then it's sort of either nothing happens with it, and you feel like you know you put all this effort into something, and then it's just nothing's going to happen with it, and so there's sort of like a bit of a lack of control there. So in some ways it's very satisfying and gratifying, and in other ways it can be very lonely and disappointing. On the flip side, like with directing, you have, to a certain extent, you have control, and it's sort of like you're making all of these decisions. It's much more stressful, and it's the downside of that is that the success or failure of the thing is entirely on you, and so it has a different set of sort of rewards and drawbacks, and same thing with acting. It's actually that one's I would say that one is the most fun, because you're kind of playing and you get to interact with these other people, but also it's not really your thing. It's in the hands of the director and largely the editor as well. And whether you look good or bad it's a question of control and sort of influence, and how much control you have over the process, and they're each different. And so what it boils down to for me is I'll finish writing a script, and then I'll kind of feel like, I never want to write again. I can't wait to do some auditions and try and stretch a different type of muscle. Whereas then I'll direct a movie, and then I'll be completely like, I'm completely worn out by that, and you've been away from home for so long, and then you just want to go back and sit in your room and write uninterrupted for 6 months. It's kind of like whichever one is done at the time. I kind of want to go do the other thing. But does that
prevent you from burning out?
One of them. I'm sorry, what?
Does that prevent you from burning out, do you think, moving from like thing to thing?
Maybe, but I don't feel like I'm in any danger of burning out, because like I love all of these things so much, and so
wow.
If anything, it's just kind of like it's not burning out. It's the anxiety that comes with the possibility of not getting the possibility of not being able to do any one of these things again. It's entirely likely that I could just never get hired again, and that's more of a danger. That's more of a bummer than burning out would be. You know what I mean? Not being able to do these things that I love so much. That would be more of a risk, I think, than doing it so much that I'm getting burned out, if that sort of makes sense.
Wow, that's
totally
borderline romantic.
I remember seeing an interview with Mike Flanagan. He was saying the way in which he keeps himself going is that he always has something kind of in development or in production. So that way, if let's say a movie of his fails, it's like, well, I'm already hired on this other thing, and that can just pick up the slack. Like Dr. Sleep didn't do very well at the theaters, but he was already in development on, I think it was Midnight Mass at the time. So he was already working on something else. So he was like, okay, the movie failed, but I'm already busy, so they can't fire me.
Yeah, and I would love to be at a point where I can have things in literally in development where I can ping pong between those. But I definitely do try to keep a lot of things going at the same time for that exact reason. So it's just like working on different scripts or stories or whatever it's going to be. Definitely not putting all of the eggs in one basket is I think is a valuable self-preservation tool.
Oh, yeah.
When I was much younger, I would spend all my time on one particular script, and it would be like a year of my life. And then nothing would happen with it, and it would be like, oh shit, what a bummer. As time has gone on, it's become, I think I've learned that like keeping as many plates in the air as possible is the thing to do, because you never know which one is going to fall apart or get hit or just not work, or just, you know, not be any good, and not having that feel like a critical failure, but just like, oh well, fuck it, there's all these other things over here I could put my attention to. I think that's not even like a professional strategy. That's like a self-preservation strategy. That's like a keeping myself sane strategy. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely wanting to keep a lot of balls in the air.
Totally. Well, we're coming to the end of the show here. I want to squeeze in a couple more quick questions if we can.
Sure. If it's over a bit, that's okay.
Okay, cool. Well, in that case, we'll be here for a while. Hope.
You said it for 5 hours, right? Yeah.
Hope, do you have any lingering questions you want to grab here at the tail end?
Just again, I have been following you since Murder Party. I loved Murder Party. I was a huge fan. I am, like, as my title at the beginning, I'm horror. That's my thing. And honestly, like, just I kind of want to know a little bit of the backstory with, like, the melting wolf mask face, like.
Well, I will, you know, so that one, that was, like I said, it was self-funded. Somehow we had gotten our hands on this, on that warehouse. I think Bill Tangradi, who played Zyko in that movie, found the warehouse. But anyways, point is, like, we had to be out of that warehouse we had a hard out. And so the last 2 days when the melted wolf makeup came on, they were, I think the last day we shot for like 26 hours or something like that.
Jesus Christ.
Oh.
And so, and that was all just like had to leave this, this prosthetic appliance on my face for the whole time. So when it came time to take that off at the end of the day, this is disgusting. It was like this nose piece that fit right here over my nose and my mouth, and it was glued on, right? And then it was all shit on top of it. When it came time to take that nose piece off at the end of this incredibly long day where we'd been running around and everything like that, and the you know, the owner of the warehouse is like, you guys got to be out by such and such a time. It's kind of a sketchy deal in retrospect. Anyways, when the nose came off, it had collected so much sweat and just fluid in there that it kind of spilled out. It was like a little water bottle that had been glued onto my face. It was fucking disgusting. When I tell you it was disgusting, you have to believe me. It was terrible.
No, I actually used to do crime scene cleanup for a living, and like,
really?
She's seen this stuff.
Talking about what's disgusting with you. You'll
No, but I'm just imagining, like, when I had to be in my hazmat suits, like my full body, like full mask and everything, and you describing that makes me think of like some of my long things. So I totally get it, and it is gross having that pile up. So I totally get it.
You were a crime scene cleanup person?
Yeah, for the DMV area, and then I moved to Florida, and I ran all of Florida.
You ran all of Florida?
For the company, I was basically running the state. Yeah.
Like murder scenes and this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, tell them about the shotgun suicide.
Oh,
wow.
So there's a shotgun suicide where
oh my gosh,
people think I'm disgusting, but the thing is, it was in a kitchen. So it was a shotgun suicide in a kitchen, and we have to take photos of a before and after and during the process.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to take photos of like every nook and cranny, and then I see this cutting board.
Oh no.
And I see like the brain and the skull, and it's like perfectly lined up like a damn charcuterie board.
Oh
and
my
so I'm like,
Jesus
it's a brain
Christ.
charcuterie board.
Wow, you're made of sturdier stuff than I am. I'll tell you that right now.
Halloween's newest trend: brain charcuterie boards.
Unbelievable. Well, my
And
hat's
like
off
I said,
to
it
you.
was the DMV area, so like your hometown, all that. I know every nook and
Damn.
cranny of it because I've cleaned it.
My gosh. Well, I'm sure you must have some stories. That's incredible.
Yeah, I always tell people, if nothing else, I have stories for days.
Oh my God.
Uh, Jesse,
Well,
final question.
I'm not going to complain about things being gross then. Anyways, it was, yeah.
No, like I totally get what you're coming from though. Like I totally get it because I do I get it because you do have that buildup and that, and it's the dirt and the sweat and the like. So I totally get where you're coming from, and I never had to stay in my prosthetics or my mask for 26 fucking hours. So I can only imagine.
I'm so glad this is the Toxic Avenger episode, and that this is just really appropriate talk for this one.
Right?
You did this to yourself, Macon. You signed up for the gloop and the ooze and all that shit.
No. It's true. It was that was another one where it was just like it was just so fun and just sort of getting that was also all friends from high school and elementary school really. So just sort of getting
That's
to
awesome.
kind of do that with buddies has been really the high point of my
And it
story.
launched you, man. So like that's even better.
So cool.
Yeah, I'm beyond grateful. I've had a lot of very lucky things in that way.
Jesse, final questions.
One other thing, there's a credit here for Swamp Thing, the DC Universe Swamp Thing. How did you land that one? Swamp Thing is one of my favorite characters. I'm very bummed it only lasted one season.
Me too, and he is one of my favorite characters too. I mean, definitely like the Alan Moore are like my all-time favorites. I got an interview with Mark Verheiden, who was the showrunner for that, and he had seen Blue Ruin, and you know what? I tried to talk. I don't want to say I tried to talk him out of it, but I was like, my man, the Phantom Stranger, like, what are you, a tall, angular, Bill Nighy looking, what I imagine to be like a British dude in a fedora. What do you like? I was kind of like, what are you talking about? And he was like, no, we're gonna do something totally different. He's gonna be more of kind of like an earthy character that you don't really know. He's the Phantom Stranger at first, and so I got on board with it, but because I came into it as a fan of the comic books, I was like, you guys have a very different interpretation of this character than how he was on the page.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of again, it's one of those things of like, what? I get to be in the Swamp Thing show. And Derek was incredible. I thought, and the makeup was just incredible. The whole swamp set that they had, it was just sort of a dream thing that I got to participate in. I managed to go with them and take their direction and do what they tell me to do, even though I felt sort of ill-equipped to portray that character as I sort of remembered him from the comic books. But it was just like a really magical thing to get to walk into the room and see Derek in the full makeup. It was just mind-blowing. It was a bummer it only lasted one season. I hope it comes back again, or they do something different. I mean, you keep hearing about like the Dark Universe. Maybe they're going to do something with this, that, or the other. I don't know what's going to happen with it or with any of the DC stuff, but I hope they do something with Swamp Thing because
I think there was talk of putting him into one of the CW shows, and all the CW shows are now basically gone. So
yeah,
that all kind of evaporated pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. It seems like every so often there's like a new, like, all right, we're gonna throw all these out and we're gonna start ahead with like a new version of the character or the franchise, whatever it is. It's sort of like I just gotta wait and see what actually comes out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you ever go back to writing comics again, or do you want to just stay with film at this point?
No, I would love to. I had a graphic novel come out a year before last, and I'm writing the sequel to that one. I would love to do comic books. Absolutely. I would love to do anything. Anything anybody wants to pay me to do, I will do.
Dude, I'll be first in line to buy it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no,
Yeah, what is that graphic novel called for listeners?
it's called Long Road to Liquor City. It's
Hell
put
yeah.
by Oni Press.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was a
Well, I think a friend of mine works for Oni Press. Robert Myers. Do you know Robert Myers at all?
I don't but I had sort of like I worked with just a couple of like two editors there, and so there was a big team over there that I didn't have direct contact with, but that was one that I had written as a script for a movie, but it was, it was hard R. It was not based on an IP. It was a period piece. It was there was all these like reasons why it was doomed as a film project, but we kind of retrofitted it to be a comic book instead, and so I worked with an artist that I'd worked with before named Joe Flood. Who's actually Joe and I have, speaking of comic books, they're doing a Toxie graphic novel,
Nice.
Times, and so Joe and I have a story in that. So yeah, still definitely working on comics whenever I can.
Awesome. We're all
Nice.
comic nerds over here too, so like that's right up our alley.
Nice. Well, I hope you enjoy that when that one comes out.
Well,
Nice.
perfect.
Yeah.
My girlfriend would absolutely assassinate me if I didn't bring up you being on Reservation Dogs. It is her favorite show. And when I mentioned that I was going to be interviewing you, she was like, "Oh, I know him." And I was like, "Oh, what have you seen?" And she was like, "Reservation Dogs," and then proceeded to show me the show.
Yeah.
So she said you have to say three nice things about the show. That's the request.
Oh, well, I don't want you to get assassinated. I could say more than that. Sterling is the showrunner, Sterling Harjo, is a really, really sweet guy and incredibly talented. And it's just I love seeing how the show that's very much his baby has blown up and become kind of a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Those the kids that play the kids, all four of them, are just incredibly sweet young actors. I had like just kind of like one scene with Blair. It was very, very small.
Yeah.
Bit, but all of the other actors, even though they weren't in the scenes, they were just hanging around. It was a very cool, like, even when they didn't have scenes to shoot, they were just hanging out on set. So
I love that.
Had this cool little clubhouse vibe. And then the last thing I would say is they had really, really tight COVID protocols on that show. The first season was right in the midst of the first wave, and it was kind of like, for me, I was like, how is this going to work? Nobody was really sure like what was going on in the world, let alone in the industry.
Yeah, the dark times, as I remember it.
Yeah,
Mask, face shield, yeah.
All of that, and it was my first experience with like, okay, this is how you could make a set work, and it's not fantastic, but it kept everybody safe, and it kept the work flowing, and so that's not as exciting as the kids are sweethearts, but it was very cool to see how there's a way to sort of make that work and keep everybody safe too. So
no, yeah, that's a huge compliment, especially for a Hulu show that some people might call an underdog. I love that it's taken off and it's like front page advertising for them now. Like it is, and it's good. It's so good. I'm very pleased.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and I was really happy that they asked me back. I hope they will ask me back again. I would be there in a heartbeat if they did.
Well, hell yeah. Well, Macon, I really appreciate the time that you've given us on the show here, for answering all of our questions and kind of appeasing our fangirl moments. I really appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for being patient with the tech difficulties at the beginning. And yeah, I had a great time talking with you guys. Please hit me up again after Toxie comes out if you want, and I'll be able to, you know, we could, there won't be spoiler restrictions on it at that time. So.
Yeah,
I'll fly out to Texas to avoid tech issues if need be. Shoot, like to have you back would be amazing.
We're running the
if I can't figure out my fucking microphone settings between now and then I don't deserve to be on any other shows. I'll get it figured out. I promise.
You're amazing, and you've been such a treat. Honestly, you really have.
It's my pleasure. I'm very glad to talk to you guys, and I hope we get to again sometime.
Perfect.
Oh, that would be amazing.
That's all I have. Oh, do you miss living on the East Coast? Do you see staying in Texas for a long time?
Oh, I don't. I do miss living on the East Coast. I miss Virginia, especially. I miss New York a lot. Texas is good for us right now, but I don't know if I'll be here in the long term. It's sort of it depends on what the kids are up to, but right now good. But yeah, no, I miss Virginia very much. I was just back there. My dad still lives there. My brothers live in Philly, so I get back there.
Nice.
Yeah, love it there for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's all I have. Thank you, Macon. Thank you so much. We've been trying to schedule this for a long time.
I know. Thank you for being patient with me, and it was very nice to meet all three of you. I hope we get to talk again soon.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Cool. You guys have a great day. If you have any questions, like follow up or whatever, then just shoot me an email.
Sure thing.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Seriously.
Right on. It was good to talk to you.
You too.
Thank you.
And if you have any messes I need to clean up for you, you know who to call.
Right. There we go. She'll get you cleaned up entirely.
Right.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.
All right, see ya.
Thank you.
Bye.